Hi, I'm John F. Allen.
And I'm RJ Sullivan.
And we're the Two Towers.
So John, I know you're a big fan of the Hammer stuff.
Absolutely. I think that besides the classic Universal film starring Bela Lugosi, the Hammer films were what got me intrigued with the character. And much like you, with regards to those books, the little abridged novel digest, I sank my teeth, pun intended, and well, into the classic novels such as Dracula and Frankenstein and a lot of Poe's work because I'm a huge Poe fan. And that being all said, uh, the Hammer films with Christopher Lee, that was how I overall envisioned Dracula. And outside of my exposure uh, to the comics, as a kid, I remember I wish that they had put a pencil thin mustache on Christopher Lee and he would have been perfect because it would have been very similar to what I was reading in the comics. And this was the 70s, so that was the whole, that was my thing back then. And you know, some of the other subsequent films that explore Dracula, like I say, not a big fan of the Frank Langella. I loved Love at First Bite. I know that's a spoof and a comedy, but again, as a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, I don't remember when that movie came out. I may have been younger than that. I saw George Hamilton as, I mean, he looked like a vampire to me. He had dark hair. He had this, very European look. He was orange, and he was tall, and he had all of that. And I know it was a comedy, but between him and Christopher Lee, and then the comics, that was what Dracula looked like, and that was who Dracula was to me. And that's not discounting Bela Lugosi because I thought they all should have been dressed like Bela Lugosi because I thought Bela Lugosi was the sharpest dressed Dracula there was.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
with all but with all of those things being taken into consideration or whatnot, the Hammer films hold a very special place in my heart. And I agree with you, RJ. They're diminishing returns, but despite even the worst of them, I still love them.
Hey,
Uh,
Elvira hosts the last one, Satanic Rites of Dracula. You can find that on Prime for free. And, you get Elvira talking to you every now and again. So you can even watch the really terrible ones and have a good time with it.
Yeah, I own the one, the Dracula 1971 AD.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Oh my God, the film is not great at all, but
No,
the idea of putting Christopher Lee's Dracula in the 70s
sure.
in what back then would have been modern times was just so over the top and awesome to me as a kid because I'm like, there's people in mini skirts and go-go boots and bell bottoms and you've got all of the trimmings of the 70s and he's so out of place with this and it's like, it was just really, really awesome to behold. And I have watched that film. I own it. I bought it on Voodoo. It was on sale, and I
Yeah,
was like,
I've
grab it.
got that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, a lot of them are fun, but I think that, when it comes to the Hammer films, those hold the most special place in my heart with regard to the Dracula lore. And off topic, but I wanted to mention this with you, Kaili, that when it comes to the novels that you have read, um, so let me first say that I am not, and I don't begrudge anyone because my daughter is a huge fan of these films. I'm not a fan of the Twilight series. And it's fine. I mean, like I say, I don't begrudge people who I just personally don't like them. But here's the thing. Um, when it comes to adaptations of novels into television series or films, some of the novels that I really wanted to see adapted never have been. And I think that they would make for the best. And so I'm going to list a few so we can see if you've read these yet. So, one series is the Necroscope series by Brian Lumley. I read that whole series 3 times in my lifetime. And I mean, they are thick books. So it's like each volume, each book in the series is like, a lot of reading. But I was so enamored by it as a teenager that I just, ate it all up. And I was thinking, wow, I would love to see this as a film. Of course, they would have to abridge it because there was a lot of points in it that kind of drug on. They paid off later, but the writing kind of drug on a bit. But I thought overall the Necroscope series was one of the best. And then the other is Anno Dracula by Kim Newman. Now, Kim Newman as an author has inspired a lot of my own books that deal with vampires and other preternatural creatures because of his ability to do alternate histories and to incorporate loosely other franchises being whether they be horror related or pop culture related into his work in a way that's ambiguous enough to where he's not going to get dinged by anyone for a copyright violation or whatnot, but enough to where if you're sharp and you're reading it, you're going to chuckle to yourself and think, aha, I see what you did there. And so I don't know if you've read either one of those series, but if you have, I'd like to hear what you think. If you haven't, I would highly suggest them.
I haven't read Necroscope. I own Anno Dracula, and I started reading it, and then I think school probably happened. So I'm not very far into it, but that is one that really intrigued me. And I absolutely love the whole concept of that book. And I've heard fantastic things about Kim Newman as a writer. So it's definitely on my TBR. So near future, I'm hoping to read Anno Dracula.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
I
must
will,
confess I've not read that either, and it is on my TBR.
well, I will say to both of you because I won't spoil a lot of it, but when you read it, please, I would love to have a discussion with both of you. Maybe that might be a project that we have over the next few months and we reconvene here and talk about it. But, I would love that personally. But I would love to see and I call them Easter eggs because they're hidden little references to pop culture and other horror films and novels um, with throughout the series. And I would love to see which ones you pick up on when you're reading. It will be interesting conversation to have. I can guarantee it because he filled it to the brim, and it's so off the cuff and innuendo that it's like if you're not paying attention, you're gonna skim right over it. But then when you do hit one and you recognize what it is, you're like, wow. I mean, how did you even think to put that in there? And some of it is true history that he's kind of turned around in a Harry Turtle Dove-esque way. So that really is kudos to me because I love alternate histories. It's almost like the Marvel TV show, What If, one little thing changes and then you have a whole set of consequences for that from a historical perspective. So I would encourage both of you sooner rather than later to tackle Anno Dracula, and I would love to have a discussion with both of you on that. And when you are able to tackle at least the first book in Necroscope, I'd love to see what you thought of it from beginning to end. It is a bit lengthy, I will warn.
Okay. Well,
Definitely.
I have some audiobook credits, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm down.
All right.
All right.
So speaking of maybe overlooked classics, so transitioning to the conversation that we're having here for Halloween time, it's mid October as we record this, and this was why we wanted to have Kaili on here. While she was talking about various Dracula productions and adaptations and things like that, I asked about one that I knew was fairly obscure in a lot of circles and was wondering if she had seen it yet, because one of the things that Kaili does when she specifically rates Dracula films, she has like a whole set of categories as far as how close did they stick to the original novel, and other categories that I'm going to let her explain as we go. But when I was about 11 or 12, and I think John has similar memories, I remember PBS showed this BBC production, and I was flipping around. According to the write-up on Wikipedia, this was Halloween night of 1979, apparently. PBS showed an episode of Great Performances, and it was called Count Dracula, and it starred Louis Jourdan, which meant nothing to me at the time, honestly. But it ran from like 9 p.m. to around midnight, and I was watching it on my black and white TV in my room, and I was completely enthralled from beginning to end. I will say on the black and white TV, I think some of the special effects and some of the visuals are probably a little kinder. But for years, it was kind of gone. And then I think the DVD came out maybe in 2007 thereabouts, and I was able to rediscover it. And when the DVD dropped in price, I purchased it and confirmed that yes, this was the same production, and learned a great deal more about it. And then it seems like a production. It's actually called Count Dracula. It was made by the BBC and aired on BBC Two on the 22nd of December in 1977. Louis Jourdan's probably better known as the villain in the James Bond film Octopussy, and I'm sure John is anxious to say Swamp Thing. Among yes, among many other things. And another standout performance, I think, was Professor Van Helsing, played by Frank Finlay, among other many credits that he has. He was in the early 70s Three Musketeers and Four Musketeers productions, and on from there. So I asked the Vampire Girl about this. She said she actually had not seen it yet. I asked her to give it a watch, and she was going to come and tell us her thoughts on it. We have not spoken about this yet, but I sent it to her as a recommendation, and I'm curious to hear her thoughts. So, Kaili, what did you think?
So I went in knowing that this was going to be a good adaptation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cinemassacre. He did a video a couple of years ago talking about the best, most faithful Dracula adaptations. And this one, the 1977 Count Dracula, was the most authentic by his standards. My standards are a little bit different. So when I judge adaptations, I judge on character, on plot, and on finale. And I will say, this is the closest adaptation to the book that I have seen, especially in concerning the plot. There are moments that we haven't seen in any adaptation before. There are characters in this that we haven't seen in any adaptation before, which was really exciting to me. Because one of my favorite characters always gets left out of adaptation. Mr. Swales, the harbinger of doom as he is. I love him in the book. He's in it for a chapter and a half, but he was in this adaptation, so I was really happy.
Is he the guy that bothers Mina and Lucy at the port?
Yep. He's the one who comes up and is like, people lie to make themselves seem better after death, but there's no point because we're all gonna die anyway. Yep. He's really fun. He has a whole monologue in the book about death and lies and the reckoning after when the angels all call us home, and it's great. He's so fun. Um, so this, um, I watched it on Amazon Prime, where you can get it. It's on Prime. Um, and there are times you can tell that it was originally cut for TV,
Mhm.
and because there are kind of jarring stops and starts in transitions. So watching this on TV, I'm sure would have been a lot better than watching it as a movie, quote unquote movie. Um, was that your experience rewatching it as well?
Well, the DVD I have has it in two parts, and
Hmm.
it's got the basically what they did was they cropped out the end credit and then the beginning credit, and yeah, there's a bit of a jarring cut when they go from part one to part two. That's really all that's really lost. My recollection back in 1979, and I'm just going to say this was in 79, so um, they showed the entire thing in one night, pretty much all together. I watched it all in one evening. So I imagine it was very similar to what they have on Amazon Prime. But basically all they did was they cut out the editing it into parts is the only thing that was really missing.
Yeah, so there are some moments where it feels like there was a commercial break
Uh-huh.
in this section. And I love Louis Jourdan as Dracula. He was really, really good. And Frank Finley as Van Helsing was also really, really good. I felt that the actress who played Mina, who oh, there she, Judy Bowker, she was fine, but I don't think she was given enough screen time. I don't know. I'm such a sucker for Mina Murray. I love
Hmm.
her so much. She is a fantastic, fantastic example of an early strong woman in fiction. So
Hmm.
I love her. I would have loved to see her more in this, but she was also pretty good. So, but honestly, I really like, and I was surprised by how close they stayed to the book, which it was a TV miniseries originally, so that added length gives them more leeway to put in more from the book. Um, which I
Yeah.
think if books are going to be adapted, they should be adapted as miniseries or as TV. We saw this back in the 70s as well with Salem's Lot, and we saw it most recently with Game of Thrones, and it was incredibly successful and an incredibly great adaptation of those books for the fans. So I really appreciate what this adaptation was able to do with the book.
Yeah. So I will put up front some of the some of the budget is pretty low quality. Did that throw you off that much while watching this?
Not not really. I've noticed watching any kind of British television, especially from like the 80s and 90s, that they film a lot on location. So I went in expecting that. There's a lot of real, really in the woods, really in this building, really in this apartment, really in this giant house.
Hmm.
So, the special effects were kind of odd, but
Yes, indeed.
it was a low budget in the 70s, so like I can appreciate. Um, but other than that, no, I didn't really get those kind of low budget vibes.
Well, that's good because it's hard for me, to think watching this if I were considerably younger, what might I think? I've seen it many, many times now, so I kind of meet it three-quarters before I even start it, and it's pretty easy for me to just enjoy the good parts and kind of blur out the bad parts. So Louis Jourdan was considered and is still considered an unusual choice to play Count Dracula. First of all, he's so obviously French. I was very surprised though how well he pulled it off. What was your impression?
I really liked him. Dracula has this kind of arrogance about him in the book that's been brought on by he's been alive for way too long. and he has seen countries come and go. He has seen humanity rise and fall. And so this comes with, and I think that's another reason I like the Langella Dracula so much, is because he just has this air of you can't touch me, and I know that you know that. And Jourdain brings that out really, really well. He does not emote. He does not get angry at times when in the book Dracula gets angry.
Right, that's true.
But he's so smug about everything that I still love it.
Right.
So no,
So
I really,
what about
I really like him.
Oh, how about your favorite character, Jonathan Harker?
I was hesitant at first because Jonathan is always at least introduced as this very mild-mannered, very baby-faced, he's like a newborn in this world of business and adulthood. And so that's how he started in this movie as well. He was very quiet and unassuming. And then as things started to unfold around him, he got his feet under him. He grew a spine, and he was not settling for Dracula's nonsense. So I was very happy with the Jonathan in this movie.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of poking you to call him out as useless, as I've heard you do on so many other.
He wasn't the best. He wasn't the best, but he's not as bad as the Langella Jonathan. He's the worst. He is still the worst. But he's very soft in this movie. And then he grows a beard, and I feel like as soon as he has a beard on his face, he's done putting up with other people. He's still I was thinking about the moment where Dracula attacks Mina in the bed while Jonathan is sleeping next to her, and he wakes up, and his first word is, well, why didn't you wake me up? It's like, sir, if she could have, she would have.
Right.
So don't blame your wife for what just happened. So that moment, I was like, shut up, Johnny. But no, he's no Keanu Reeves, but he's also no Langella Dracula. So, because I hated him in that movie.
Wow, high praise indeed. So I've watched this many times, but I noticed for the first time, and maybe I noticed it before and don't remember, but I never noticed that one of the few changes they do make is they made Lucy and Mina sisters, which was not the way it's written at all. I mean, they're best friends, and like really, really close and chummy, which I've heard people comment on in other commentaries before, but I have no idea why they specifically made that change, unless it was to tone down any speculation on the viewer's part. But I thought of all the things to change, I thought that was an odd point. They go out of their way to call them sisters on more than one occasion. So did you catch that while you were watching it, or just afterward, or?
Yeah, I'm always curious about how they're going to portray the relationship between Lucy and Mina. And honestly, from my perspective, I look at everything from a writer's perspective. And so I feel like it was just an ease of explanation kind of thing. It would take too long to set up that these two are just best friends, and Mina is basically her sister in the book, so why not just make them sisters? Yeah. But I do like what you said about removing any unseemly speculation, because in the movie they share a bed, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with sisters sharing beds, but there's also nothing wrong with platonic best friends sharing beds. But
sure,
in the 70s, some people may not have liked that. So I think it was just, it definitely could have been to remove speculation. It also could have just been, it was easier. They spent less page time on them. So.
Well, we wouldn't want any pearl clutching in a PBS production of the 70s, I guess. I don't know. It's funny, as many times as I had seen that, I didn't remember that standing out to me before, but I was like, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting change. one character that frequently gets cut short or isn't as well understood, I think, is Renfield.
Mhm.
I really like the way they gave him more of that, like they made his story arc in clearer focus in this, and I think in most versions. I think it's really hard to understand the sacrifices he tries to make to protect Mina,
Yeah.
because they mainly like to talk about him eating flies and spiders and other things, and he's just kind of there in the background to act like a weirdo. But I think that this is one of the versions where they really show what he was giving up and who he was trying to protect, and
Mhm.
it got much further into his motivations in most versions I've seen.
Yeah. Renfield is my baby. I love him. He is, and like you said, he is so shafted in every adaptation. But I feel like in this one, Jack Shepherd did a great job of portraying both the very sophisticated, well-spoken, well-educated man that Renfield was, and the lunatic driven by this desire to live forever that he had become. And when he meets Mina for the first time and she treats him like a normal person, she treats him with respect, and she is not disturbed by him in any way, that he finds this mutual respect with her, and she takes the time to listen to him and to understand him. And then when he sees that she is being taken advantage of by this power that he was so obsessed with, it, and especially in this version, they do a great job of showing that it kind of kicks him where it hurts,
Mm-hmm.
that this whole ideology that he's been believing in for as long as he's been serving the count is destroying this person's life who doesn't deserve to have their life destroyed. And so he is unwilling to let that happen. As ineffective as his efforts are, they come from a very sweet place, and I love him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you see it very much the way I do. So that's cool. Let's see. Um, Even though this is quite old, even by my reckoning, 1979 was a little while back there. But one of the things I found I tend to kind of overlook, and then I'm reminded when I rewatch it, is there some of the graphic, like the biting scenes and the sexuality, for something on PBS and BBC. I'm frequently kind of taken aback by how far they were willing to take it in this production. Was that
Mm-hmm.
anything that caught your attention either, or is that just me?
No, that's another aspect that I'm always looking at is how do they treat Dracula and his seduction of Mina and Lucy. In the Coppola version, it's very explicit. It
Hmm.
is very explicit. And then in the Langella version, it's more suggested and it's shown in really artsy, glowing lights. In this version, there were moments where I hate any sorry, I'm all over the place. I hate Lucy moaning so much in this movie. It's so irritating. Not nearly as bad as the Coppola version. That was so annoying. But in this, I was also surprised by how much they showed for the 70s. Now, there's no nudity. There's no like really like hardcore stuff, but they do show him like on her and like biting into her neck in like this really animalistic way.
Yeah,
And
it really is more lustful than I've seen in many versions.
it really is because in the even going back to the Lugosi version, it's more of a like a creeping kind of quiet. In the Hammer, it's also kind of a more like seductive. In this, it's like we're going at it. I want this right now, and you're gonna give it to me, kind of thing.
Right.
So I was surprised, but also slightly intrigued that that was the route that they decided to go.
Yeah, it always catches me off guard when I rewatch it. The only other aspect I want to make sure I come back to is Frank Finlay as Professor Van Helsing. I'm not real familiar with his work, but I think he is quite exceptional in this. And Professor Van Helsing is a role that has been done extremely well in a number of adaptations. I do consider this one of the standouts, though. What are your thoughts on him?
Definitely. Um, in a lot of adaptations, Van Helsing is missing this kind of fatherly affection that he has for the entire cast of characters. From he treats the women and the men as if they're his children, and we really see that come through in this version. He's
Mm,
very sweet with Lucy. He's very protective of Nina and of John. He's got this wisdom that comes with age, but it's like talking to your father. He doesn't. I feel like the closest we get to this kind, same sensibility in any of the adaptations is Peter Cushing in the Hammer films,
mm.
because he also has this very soft. He switches from hardened vampire hunter to protective, gentleman very well. But I really, really love Frank Finley's portrayal in this version.
And also his English as a second language
Yes.
aspect, where he's asking about the meaning of words, and he'll kind of stop and be like, "Really? Okay." And yeah,
Yeah.
um, and that's fun when you've rewatched it several times. You start to catch more of those kinds of mannerisms as they come out.
Mhm.
So I know that the Vampire Girl rates on a scale of 1 to 5, as we do here at the Two Towers. Um, so I was wondering if you had given that any thought, and if you had a rating for Count Dracula.
I do. For this adaptation, for the Count Dracula 1977, I give it a score of 4 out of 5. The plot is great. There are just a couple of performances that I would have wanted more from, but other than that, I really enjoyed this adaptation.
Very good. I go 4.5 simply because it's old, and it's one of the earliest adaptations I've been introduced to, and I've got a long history with it. So there's the nostalgia cloud there at this point. So
And
it's
that's totally valid.
yeah, it's probably not entirely um it's not without its rose colored glasses, I guess. But the
This
other
is
thing
your
I wanted
show.
to
You
say,
can do what you want. You can do what
I'd
you want.
still
This is your show.
yeah, I give it the half off, because even as much as I love it, it's really hard to ignore some of the budget constraints that can
Yeah.
make it kind of cringy in some unintentional ways as it plays out. I find it, even for the product of its time, I feel like there were some things they maybe could have done better than they did.
Mhm.
But other than that, I hold it in some high esteem, and it was my pleasure to introduce it to you and get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I really appreciate the recommendation. It's been fun to talk about with you.
Absolutely. John, I know did not have a chance to get to this yet, but maybe when we have you back on, we'll get some of his thoughts on this as well.
Definitely.
Um, that's all. I think that's all we got for today. So I will just wrap this up by saying, if you guys are out, it's Halloween time. If you're listening and you're really into vampire lore and you're really into Count Dracula, I highly recommend the Vampire Girls YouTube channel. And that's spelled with a Y in vampire.
Yep.
Now it's a work in progress. I know at the beginning she says she wants to be the resource for all things vampire. However, you have to give her a little more time. Still,
Yeah.
you know,
College sucks.
I'm sorry.
College sucks.
That college sucks. How is that going this semester?
It sucks.
Oh. Um, well, I wish you the best of luck, and I look forward to seeing future episodes of The Vampire Girl. You know that I'll work a comment or two in there every time I see a new video go up and I get a chance to watch it. Um,
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys having me on. This has been a ton of fun.
I have had a great time also. Like we've been planning this for a while, and we had to kind of put you off a couple times, but I knew it was going to be a trip when we had you on here, and it has been. John, do you have anything to add?
I want to thank you for appearing and being on our show, and it's nice meeting you. And I look forward to talking about some more things. I really want to get off into the television series over the past 30, 40 years, you know, that deal with vampires. That'll be really interesting topic to talk about. So hope to have you back on the show sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
Definitely.
maybe we put a list together. We come up with some future topics. That would be fun.
Heck yeah, let's do it. I'm down.
Absolutely. And it gives you a couple hour excuse not to put off the studying, right?
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being on here with us, and I'll look forward to having you back as a guest. And I'll be checking out your channel when I see the new episode notice. And I'll always make a comment or two. So I'll look forward to following up with you and talking more Dracula and vampire lore.
Heck yeah, I'll see you over there.
Alrighty. And Ken, before we sign off, can you give our audience another run through of your YouTube channel and where they can find you and things of that nature?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube at The Vampyre Girl, and that is vampire spelled Vampyre. You can also find me on Instagram at author Kaili, that is author Kaili.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And RJ and I are authors, and we have our own sites. So if you want to know what's going on with me, you can check me out at johnfallenauthor.com. You'll be able to sign up for my monthly newsletter and find out all the other interesting things that are going on with me. Where can I find you, RJ?
You can find me at rjsullivanfiction.com, and my work in progress is my occult detective fighting a vampire in what I hope will be a send up to the Hammer films if I can get this worked out quite right. It'll be a little while before you see that, but this just seemed like a good time to mention that that's what I'm currently working on. So
Heck yeah.
All right.
I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I forgot to ask you about your writing efforts real quickly. What do you have? Is there anything that you have out there, or is this still things that you're hammering out? Where are you with your writing?
I'm still working on it. I'm working on this current draft. It is I'm writing a vampire apocalypse novel in the style of I Am Legend almost. And that hopefully I'll have it done by the end of the year and be able to start pitching and stuff next year.
Well, awesome. Well, we'll look forward to talking to you about that in the future as well.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we want to thank our listeners, and please feel free to leave your comments on the show, and make sure to check out The Vampyre Girl. I want to make sure I say that right. And also check us out. And we'd like to know what you like. What did you think of the Louis Jourdan film? What did you think of any of the topics and things that we discussed today? We want to hear from you. And also, if you are on Facebook, there is a group for nerds of a certain age called OG Nerds, although all over 18 are welcome. This caters to nerds 40 and over, us older folks that can remember back in the day, So go ahead and check them out on Facebook. And there's plenty of exciting and new posts there. So we want to thank everyone for tuning in, and until next time, stay nerdy. The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by OG Nerds, a new social media community dedicated to nerds of a certain age, 40 and over, although all are welcome. Members are encouraged to share articles and links on their favorite nerdy topics such as animation, anime, art, books, writing, comics, manga, movies, music, sports, tech, science, TV, video games, RPGs, and more. Be sure to visit them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies.